All right, so today I want to start by talking about the latest story from Project Veritas. And they basically, I'll just read it here. Denver area, Colorado Dems exec committee and our revolution chair, um, Christopher Jacks. 2020 is a political revolution. We want to change this country with violence. There's only one way to do it: guillotines, mother effer, killing random World War II Germans in the street. Again, so the point of this is, um, at what point do we as a society call this out? Now, there's some people doing it, but there's not nearly enough. And I think the other big thing too is, um, a lot of people are still treating political disagreements like they're traditional political disagreements. These aren't political disagreements of the 90s or the 2000s. We are beyond that point. I think that it's very safe to say that, um, again, these are no longer minor political disagreements, and I don't think that we can treat them that way. And that this isn't a debate on, should taxes be 1 or 2, 3% higher. No, this isn't. We have one side of the political spectrum that is openly advocating for, and with the support of many of the, again, this isn't some radical fringe minority of the party. The Biden campaign, I think Kamala Harris as well, they've literally used campaign money to bail out people that have been rioting and looting, right? They have openly advocated for, BLM rioting and looting, and Antifa rioting and looting. Joe Biden wouldn't call them out in the debate. He said they didn't even exist. On top of that, again, so we have one side of the political spectrum. And here's the thing: one thing I want to debunk as well. They'll argue the same thing on the other hand, which it isn't true. I mean, it's true, but only to a very small extent. Um, we don't, as a society, accept violence when it's coming from the right. And here's the other reason too. A lot of it isn't even on the right. For example, you had those people that were arrested in Michigan last week. A lot of people were talking about, oh, these are crazy right wingers, when in reality they weren't, because the head guy had talked a lot about how much he hates Trump and how much he hates the cops. Okay, right wingers are usually pretty friendly towards the cops, and they're usually pretty friendly towards Trump. So this is a group that hated everyone, right? So given the fact that they need to flat out lie, like here's the thing too, like if a group of people, or if an individual person is such a bad person, you shouldn't have to lie or take things out of context to try and prove your point that they're bad. You shouldn't have to do that, because if they're bad, you wouldn't have to do that. And when it comes to the right, that's usually what has to happen. And here's the other thing too, is that, when it comes to social media, all the people that step the least bit out of line, and I mean even to the slightest degree, if you step out of line and you're not on the left, you will be banned or shadow banned for sure. Like for sure, you will be censored in some way, shape, or form. But when you're on the left, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Antifa can have Twitter accounts and Facebook pages. Black Lives Matter can do this kind of stuff with impunity. You can have people call for the death of Trump on Twitter and Facebook. They do very little, if anything, to police it. Again, so this is why this is so bad. And this is something that, people have been paying attention politically have known for a while now. And here's the thing, like this is the reason why I believe these political disagreements are no longer minor, um, things. Because if you're supporting the left, you are agreeing with this kind of stuff. You are agreeing with this kind of stuff, which is in other words saying is that if you're voting Democrat or Liberal in Canada, and here's the thing, I don't think most of the people voting for it agree with that. I'm not saying that, but the people you're voting for do. And not to mention too, there is a very vocal minority of people, namely people like this, who are hell bent on taking over the mainstream, Democrat, liberal, NDP kind of parties. These people are hell bent on taking over these parties. The traditional, I'm a center left kind of person, they don't care that much about politics. I mean, they maybe care a little bit, but not nearly as much as these people. And when it comes to politics, the people that are most committed, the people that are willing to go the furthest, the people that are willing to use the most violence to get their way, are going to be the ones that are going to win. They're just going to be, right? Because they're the ones most committed to their cause. So here's the thing. If you're voting for these kind of people, you are supporting stuff like, and here's the thing, I don't think the vast majority of people watching this are, but here you probably know people that do support people like this. You are supporting violence against political enemies. And again, like I mentioned already, don't give me this BS about the right does the same thing. Violence, there's no right-wing groups that are going around burning down buildings, burning down businesses, showing up to people's houses, threatening people who disagree with them politically. That's not happening. And it's happening, but on a much, much smaller scale. Much smaller scale. Like infinite, like 100 times smaller, probably. So again, if you were someone who is voting for these left-wing parties, you are supporting this kind of stuff by default. And that's why, like I say, I believe that minor political disagreements are no longer minor political disagreements. And I think the days of that are already past. I mean, some people would suggest they're not, but if you want to argue they're not, we are very close to things to that point. So people better speak up now. Um, this is from Rocco Galati. He said he links to a story here saying German neurologist warns against wearing face masks. Oxygen deprivation causes permanent neurological damage. Now, again, um, this is another thing that these people deny, even though there's been people that have made YouTube videos proving that wearing a mask lowers oxygen levels, right? Like it's indisputable. I don't care who you are. You're a doctor. You're an expert in whatever field. Like I say, there's people that have made YouTube videos demonstrating this very clearly. There is no debate on the topic. And this is another reason why I don't trust these people, is that the pro-mask zealots, the pro-mask people are flat out lying when it comes to this kind of stuff. They will say that there is no downside to wearing masks. There's no downside to wearing masks when there is. And there's no evidence that they make a significant impact in the first place. The cloth masks, the kind of the homemade cloth ones specifically, there's evidence that points towards those doing more harm than good, right? I mean, here's the thing: like the evidence is very clear. If you're not sick, there's no reason to wear a mask. If you're sick and you're out in public, yeah, you probably should. But if you're not sick, there's no reason for it. There's literally no reason for it. And I mean, this is the thing that bothers me so much, is that if we're going to have mask mandates, let's at least say, I would still disagree with it, but let's at least say, like, if the mask crowd was the least bit credible, like the least bit credible, this is what they would say. They would say, okay, I know you guys don't like masks, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to take, 1 month or 28 days or whatever you want to do. We're going to have these mask mandates. And if the cases don't go down, we're going to do away with the mask mandates. That's what they would say. But they don't, because they know it doesn't work. And they get off. I mean, they got the two groups of people kind of, and a lot of it there's interchangeability here, in that they get off on forcing other people to adhere to their political worldviews. That they get off on that. Number two, they love being subservient. They love being treated like peasants. For whatever reason, I think there's a lot of reasons for it, but they just love it, right? Like they just love it. For whatever reason, right? Like they love that Trudeau and all these politicians, Doug Ford included, don't follow the rules that they expect the people to be held to. They love that for whatever reason, right? Like they love being treated like a peasant. And like I say, there's many arguments for that. I'm not going to get into it in the video, but that's kind of how they are. So anyway, the next thing to bring up here is from Alberta Health. 11,000 plus doctors registered to practice in Alberta. For the first time in Alberta's history, more than 11,000 doctors have registered to practice in Alberta. This represents a net gain of 246 doctors from 2019, a 2.3% increase. Now, again, if you follow the NDP and some of these more far left people and pages on anywhere, basically, this is one of the biggest things they talk about. They talk about it endlessly. Like Jason Kenney could put out a tweet saying, happy Thanksgiving or something along those lines, and you'll have these crazy leftists bombarding him with, oh, Jason Kenney wants to destroy healthcare in Alberta. Like that's all they talk about, pretty much. That, and how not wanting to completely destroy the oil and gas industry is also, those are the two things they talk about, right? Jason Kenney could put out a tweet saying, oh yeah, I went out to dinner with a friend and it was a great thing. And they'll bombard him with, healthcare and we need to go towards wind and solar. Like that's all they talk about. And I mean, they're dead wrong on both of them, but that's all they talk about. And here's the thing. They are flat out wrong about this kind of thing because one of the biggest things they talk about, and they talk about, oh, I had my doctor, I know a doctor who's leaving the province because the conservatives want to privatize healthcare, even though if you look in the States, the doctors that are fully private versus the ones who do some Medicare and Medicaid, the private ones make more money, right? So if anything, it would benefit doctors to have a more privatized system. The reality is that the reason why these doctors are leaving, at least I think in most cases, um, is because they don't want to go full 110% socialist. Again, this is another reason why these NDP people are wrong in that they view just having private competition, even if it's 1% of the people that are using it, or 1% of the money being spent on private healthcare, they view that as completely destroying the system, right? Like you're completely going away with the system, and this is just how insane these people are. That's what they genuinely think. Like that's what they genuinely think. Another thing they're bringing up too is how they're cutting AHS jobs, but I think the reality too is that they're just cutting union jobs, right? Like, and this is the other thing too is that um, if the UCP cuts union jobs but the private sector picks up the difference, like let's say we're going to cut 1,000 union jobs and the private sector is going to pick up the difference. The NDP people, they view that as, oh, they're destroying 1,000 jobs. 1,000 jobs are completely gone. But no, the reality is that they're not gone. If anything, they're better than where they started. No, but the reason these people are so upset, the reason why these NDP and socialist kind of people are so upset is that they view anything other than socialism, and by socialism, I literally mean socialism. I don't mean soft socialism. No, I mean fully socialism, right? They'll claim they're not socialist, most of them, but the reality is that they are. If you want literally no private competition whatsoever, that is socialism, pretty much by definition. So there's no debate on that. That's what they say. Like I say, that's what they say. Anything other than 100% socialism in their minds is, oh, you're completely destroying the system. You're completely upending the system. And I think it's absolutely laughable. And the last thing to bring up here is from True North. Apparently, the Ontario Hockey League is going to ban body checking, which I think is absolutely insane. And this is just the latest absolute delusional paranoia coming out of Ontario. Just when you think Doug Ford and his minions couldn't get any crazier. I mean, Doug Ford honestly recently is worse than Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau is just trying to lay low and downplay the WE scandal as much as humanly possible and downplay the massive debt as much as humanly possible. So he's kind of, been laying low. But Doug Ford is doing his best to become the most hated politician in Canada. And I mean, that's pretty hard to think when you compare him to Justin Trudeau, but honestly, he's not far off if you ask me, because he's been full on authoritarian when it comes to now here's the thing. The left agrees with him, which is I think that's the reason why he's not the most hated politician right now, is that the left agrees with these draconian lockdown measures. So that's why he's not the most hated. But here's the thing. They'll never vote for him too. Like this is the thing too, is that no matter how much you try and appease the left, they'll never support you. It doesn't matter what you try and do. They'll never support you. So I really don't know what his play is here. Like I really don't know. Like I think if an election were held a month from now, I think he'd lose by quite a bit. But again, I don't live in Ontario, so I'm not quite as up and up on their politics. But I mean, I know a lot of people who are right-leaning people who have been posting about how terrible he is. Um, so anyway, that's the last thing I wanted to talk about here. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you follow me on Twitter especially. That link's in the description. Also, BitChute and Parler. Like I say, all those links are in the description, so you can find them all there.